The champagne glass froze halfway to my lips as my sister Olivia's words cut through the ambient restaurant chatter. "Happy 30th to our pathetic sister who still rents," she announced, raising her glass high enough for all 43 family members to see. The private dining room at Westbrook House erupted in cruel laughter. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as time seemed to stretch. The expensive salmon on my plate blurred before my eyes while my skin prickled with heat that spread from my chest to my face. The chandelier light suddenly seemed too bright, each crystal casting tiny daggers of light that matched the ones being thrown at me from around the table. What they didn't know was that I'd been signing their checks for the past 5 years. Every trust fund payment. Every inheritance distribution. Every lucky windfall they thought came from Grandma's estate. All of it was flowing from accounts I controlled. My name is Rachel. I'm 30 years old, and I'm a literary archivist. And this is the story of how I finally made my family see me. Olivia slowly lowered her glass. "Seriously, Rachel," she said. 30 years old. Still renting a studio apartment. Still single. Still working at that. She tilted her head. "What is it you do again?" I swallowed. "I'm a literary archivist." "Right." She laughed. "Playing with old books while the rest of us actually contribute to society." A few people chuckled. I forced a smile. I'd learned to do that over the years. Smile when they insulted me. Smile when they compared me to everyone else. Smile when Olivia turned every family gathering into a competition I had never agreed to enter. She gestured around the table. "Look at Tyler. He just bought his 3rd investment property." Tyler looked down at his drink. "Aunt Diane's boutique is thriving." Diane smiled proudly. Even Kyle finally got his act together and started that tech company. Kyle shifted in his chair. He knew. At least part of him knew. Because his company wouldn't exist without the money I'd secretly provided. But nobody said a word. Uncle Frank leaned back, bourbon in hand. "Nothing wrong with being a renter, Rachel." He shrugged. "Someone has to be at the bottom for the rest of us to be at the top." The table laughed again. I looked at him. Then at Olivia. Then at everyone else. Not one person defended me. Not one. Olivia smiled. "Sometimes I wonder if Mom and Dad would be disappointed." My fingers tightened around my fork. Our parents had died 7 years earlier. And for 7 years, my family had believed they knew exactly what my parents had left behind. They didn't. My father had been far smarter with money than anyone realized. My mother had spent decades collecting rare manuscripts. First editions. Signed books. Historical documents. Pieces of literary history that most people would have thrown away without understanding their value. Their estate had been enormous. And the will had been extremely specific. Everything went to me. With one instruction. Take care of the family. So I did. For 5 years, I secretly paid their bills. I funded their businesses. I cleared debts. I kept homes from being foreclosed. I gave them opportunities they believed they had earned themselves. And I never told them. Because I wanted to know something. Would they love Rachel? Or would they only love what Rachel could provide? For 5 years, I waited for the answer. And tonight, I finally got it. Olivia stood up. She lifted her champagne glass. "Everyone, let's make one more toast." The room quieted. Olivia looked directly at me. To Rachel. 42 glasses rose into the air. To the sister who proves that not everyone needs to succeed. Someone laughed. Another person clapped. My glass stayed on the table. I felt something inside me go completely still. I reached into my purse. Pulled out my phone. Opened the message I'd been waiting months to send. My lawyer had already prepared everything. All I had to do was give the order. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then Olivia laughed again. "Come on, Rachel. Don't look so miserable. We're celebrating you." I looked at her. And for the first time that night, I smiled. "You're right." I pressed send. Execute Order 30. I put my phone away. Then I stood. "Where are you going?" Olivia asked. I'm tired. But we haven't even had cake. I picked up my coat. I'm sure you'll manage. I walked toward the door. Behind me, the laughter continued. They had no idea what I'd just done. They thought they had humiliated the poorest person in the family. They didn't know they'd just triggered the end of every privilege they had spent 5 years taking for granted. And tomorrow morning, Olivia's phone would be the first one to ring. The next morning, my phone started buzzing at 8:47. I looked at the screen. Olivia. I let it ring. 8:48. Again. 8:52. Again. By the fourth call, I already knew something had happened. I picked up. What did you do? Her voice was shaking. I took a slow sip of coffee. Good morning to you, too. Don't play games, Rachel. I leaned back against my kitchen counter. What's wrong? The trust fund. I said nothing. It's gone. I almost smiled. What trust fund? The monthly payment. Her voice cracked. The $50,000. It didn't come this morning. I stared out the window. Central Park was still quiet beneath the early morning light. That's strange. Strange. Yes. Rachel, I called the law firm. And? They told me to contact the benefactor. I let a few seconds pass. The benefactor? Yes. Her breathing became faster. They said the person funding the account has chosen to stop the payments. I lowered my coffee cup. Olivia. What? Are you telling me you've been receiving $50,000 every month from someone you don't even know? Silence. For the first time since I had known her, Olivia didn't have an answer. It has to be family money, she finally whispered. Does it? Our parents left everything to charity. That's what you always said. Then where did it come from? I smiled. That's a very good question. Another silence. Then her voice changed. It became quieter. More frightened. Rachel. Yes. Was it you? I looked at the city through the glass. I have no idea what you're talking about. Please. I'm just your pathetic sister who rents a studio apartment. You know that's not true. That's what you said last night. I didn't know. Exactly. She started crying. We can fix this. I closed my eyes. There it was. Not I'm sorry. Not I was cruel. Not I shouldn't have humiliated you. The first thing she wanted was to fix the money. How much do you need? I asked. All of it. I almost laughed. Olivia, your business has been losing money for years. No, it hasn't. Then why did you need an anonymous investor 3 times? She stopped breathing for a moment. How do you know that? I know a lot more than you think. Her voice became tiny. You really did it. I didn't answer. You were the benefactor. I stared at my reflection in the window. 5 years. 5 years of watching them spend money they believed they deserved. 5 years of secretly saving people who couldn't even remember my birthday without social media reminding them. 5 years of wondering if they would ever see me. And last night gave me the answer. Olivia whispered, why? I finally spoke. Because you were my family. But why didn't you tell us? Because I wanted to know whether you would love me without the money. She started sobbing. And? I looked down at my phone. You already know the answer. Rachel, please. We can change. Can you? Yes. Then tell me something. What? What's my favorite book? Silence. I waited. Nothing. What do I do on weekends? Nothing. What makes me happy? Still nothing. I nodded slowly. That's what I thought. Rachel, please. You don't miss me, Olivia. I swallowed. You miss what I provided. Her crying became louder. We're family. I almost whispered my response. Then why did I have to pay to be treated like one? Before she could answer, another call appeared on my screen. Uncle Frank. Then Kyle. Then Aunt Diane. One after another. The news was spreading. The money was disappearing. And they were finally realizing something terrifying. Their comfortable lives had never belonged to them. They had been standing on a floor I had quietly built beneath their feet. And now, I had just pulled it away. By noon, my family had stopped calling one at a time. They came together. The doorbell rang. I already knew who it was. When I opened the door, Olivia stood there with Uncle Frank, Kyle, Aunt Diane, and 3 cousins behind her. Nobody looked confident anymore. Olivia's mascara was streaked. Uncle Frank's face had gone pale. Kyle kept staring at his phone. "Rachel," Uncle Frank said, trying to sound authoritative, "we need to talk." I stepped aside. "Come in." They entered. Then they froze. Because the apartment they had mocked for 5 years wasn't an apartment at all. The small studio they thought I rented opened into a massive penthouse overlooking Central Park. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Marble floors. Original artwork. And behind glass walls, climate-controlled display cases filled with priceless manuscripts. Kyle slowly turned around. "What is this?" "My home." Olivia stared at me. "But you said you rented." "I never said that." "You let us believe it." I smiled. "You were very comfortable believing it." Uncle Frank looked toward the manuscripts. "How much is all this worth?" I looked at him. "That's the first question you ask." He looked away. Olivia stepped closer. "Rachel, you have to understand. We didn't know." "No." I shook my head. "You didn't ask." "But why would you hide this?" "Because every time I tried to tell you something about my life, you turned it into a joke." I walked toward one of the display cases. "This manuscript alone is worth more than the car you mocked me for not owning." Nobody spoke. I continued. "Remember Christmas 3 years ago?" Olivia frowned. "I mentioned I'd made some good investments." "You said you were buying lottery tickets next." Her face fell. "And Thanksgiving." I looked at Uncle Frank. "I offered to help with your mortgage." He swallowed. "You laughed and told everyone you didn't need charity from someone who couldn't afford a decent car." Uncle Frank's eyes dropped. "I didn't know. That was the problem." I turned toward all of them. "You never knew because you never cared enough to know." Kyle finally spoke. "So the money?" "Yes." He stared at me. "My company?" "Yes." "My student loans?" "Yes." He took a step backward. "You paid them?" "I did." "And Olivia's businesses?" "Yes." Aunt Diane covered her mouth. "My boutique?" I nodded. "Saved 3 times." Silence filled the room. Then Olivia whispered, "Why would you do that?" I looked directly into her eyes. "Because I loved you." Her face crumpled. "And you never once thought about how I felt?" She shook her head. "We're sorry." I nodded. "I believe you're sorry." Hope flashed across her face. Then I finished the sentence. "But you're sorry because the money stopped." Her expression collapsed. "That's not true." "Then prove it." "How?" "Walk out of here." She stared at me. "What?" "Walk out without asking me for money." Nobody moved. I pointed toward the door. "Go home. Make your own decisions. Pay your own bills. Build your own lives." "But we'll lose everything," Kyle whispered. I looked at him. "You'll lose everything you never earned." That sentence silenced the room. Uncle Frank's voice became desperate. "Rachel, we're family." I nodded. "Then start acting like it." Olivia wiped her face. "If we do that, will you give the money back?" There it was. The question I had been waiting for. I shook my head. "No." She stared at me. "You're really going to let us lose everything?" "No." I stepped closer. "I'm simply going to stop preventing you from losing what you were never capable of maintaining." Nobody had an answer. They slowly walked toward the door. But before Olivia left, she turned around. Her voice was barely audible. You planned this? I looked at my phone. 5 years ago, I planned to help my family. I paused. Last night, you taught me to stop. And when that door finally closed behind them, I knew the hardest part was over. Because now they were going to discover exactly who they were without my money holding their lives together. The first week was almost quiet. Then everything started collapsing. Olivia called me 6 times on Monday. I didn't answer. On Tuesday, she sent a message. Please, Rachel. Just talk to me. I deleted it. Wednesday morning, another message appeared. My bank froze the account. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I put my phone face down. For 5 years, I had been the person who fixed everything. This time, I didn't. Olivia's fitness company had never actually been profitable. Without the monthly transfers, the truth surfaced quickly. Employees weren't getting paid. Suppliers wanted their money. The landlord demanded overdue rent. And the bank wanted the $3 million loan repaid. The empire Olivia had bragged about for years disappeared almost overnight. But she wasn't the only one. Uncle Frank had to sell his house. The same house where he'd once told me I was at the bottom. Kyle's investors discovered that his company had been surviving on money that wasn't coming anymore. His business collapsed before he could explain what happened. Aunt Diane closed her boutique. Tyler put his investment properties on the market. And suddenly, the people who had spent years telling me how successful they were discovering something uncomfortable. Success is easy when someone else is paying the bills. I didn't celebrate their failures. That surprised even me. I expected to feel powerful. Instead, I felt tired. Because beneath all the anger was something I couldn't erase. They were still my family. One evening, I sat alone in my study surrounded by my mother's manuscripts. I picked up an old leather-bound book. Inside the cover was a handwritten note from my mother. Money reveals people. Don't let it change you. I read it twice. Then my phone buzzed. It was Kyle. His message was different from Olivia's. There was no request. No mention of money. Just 6 words. I finally understand what you do. I stared at the screen. For the first time since the birthday dinner. I wondered if maybe this story wasn't going to end with revenge. Maybe it was going to end with something much harder. The truth. Kyle's message stayed on my screen for several minutes. I finally understand what you do. I almost ignored it. But something made me reply. What do you mean? His answer came almost immediately. I found the manuscript you told us about. I frowned. What manuscript? The one you mentioned at Thanksgiving. The one you spent years preserving. I remembered. I tried to tell them about my work. Olivia had laughed. Uncle Frank had changed the subject. Nobody had listened. Kyle continued. I read it. Then another message appeared. I understand why you love this. I stared at those words. For the first time, someone in my family had shown interest in something that had nothing to do with money. I didn't respond. 2 days later, Aunt Diane contacted me. Her message was even stranger. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask me to restore her boutique. She simply wrote, I got a job at a local library. I thought of you. I read it twice. Then I smiled. Maybe this was what I had wanted all along. Not gratitude. Not repayment. Just recognition. But Olivia was different. She disappeared. For almost 6 months, I heard nothing. Then one afternoon, my phone rang. Her name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't answer. Finally, I did. Hello. There was silence. Then she said quietly, Can I buy you coffee? I almost laughed. Why? Because I want to talk. About the money. No. That answer surprised me. She continued. I'll pay. I agreed. We met at a small cafe downtown. When Olivia walked in, I barely recognized her. No designer clothes. No expensive handbag. No entourage. She looked tired. Human. She sat across from me and placed 2 coffees on the table. I've been thinking about something you said. What? You asked me what makes you happy. I said nothing. She looked down. I didn't know. Her voice cracked. I've spent 30 years knowing your name, your birthday, your job, but I never actually knew you. I slowly looked at her. She took a breath. You love stories. I felt my throat tighten. Books. Old letters. Handwritten notes. The little things people leave behind. She smiled sadly. You used to tell me about them when we were kids. I remembered. She remembered too. I thought you were boring, she whispered. I know. No. She shook her head. I mean, I was cruel. That was the first time Olivia had said it without mentioning money. I hurt you because I needed to feel better than someone. She looked directly at me. And you were always the easiest person to look down on. I didn't forgive her. Not yet. But for the first time. I believed her. And that was worth more than any apology she'd ever given me. Because this time, she wasn't asking me to save her. She was finally trying to save herself. I didn't forgive Olivia that day. But I didn't walk away either. For the first time in years, we sat across from each other without money sitting between us. No trust fund. No business loan. No secret payments. Just two sisters and everything we'd done to each other. What happens now? Olivia asked. I looked at her. That depends on what you do next. She nodded slowly. I understand. And surprisingly, she did. Over the next year, my family changed. Not all of them. Some disappeared completely. They couldn't face what they'd done, and I stopped chasing people who didn't want to take responsibility. But others started rebuilding. Kyle got a real job. He stopped calling himself an entrepreneur and started learning how to actually build something. Aunt Diane kept working at the library. She even started recommending books to me. Uncle Frank sold his expensive house and moved into a much smaller apartment. The same kind of apartment he had once mocked me for living in. He never complained about it again. And Olivia. She worked 2 jobs while paying down her debts. No private dining rooms. No champagne celebrations. No pretending to be richer than she was. Just work. One afternoon, almost a year after my birthday, Olivia came to my apartment again. This time, she didn't look nervous. She looked peaceful. I brought you something, she said. She handed me a small package. Inside was a book. An old one. Not valuable. Not rare. Just a worn copy of a novel I'd loved as a child. I looked at her. Where did you find this? You mentioned it once. I smiled. You remembered? Yes. She sat down. I finally understand. Understand what? That you never wanted us to worship you because you had money. She looked around my home. You just wanted us to see you. My eyes filled with tears. That was exactly it. For years, I thought revenge meant watching them lose everything. But I learned something better. The real revenge wasn't their bankrupt businesses. It wasn't the houses they sold. It wasn't watching Olivia trade designer clothes for a second-hand coat. The real revenge was becoming completely independent of their approval. I didn't need them to call me successful. I didn't need them to envy me. I didn't even need them to apologize. I knew who I was. I was Rachel. A literary archivist. A daughter. A sister. A woman who had spent years preserving other people's stories while quietly learning how to write her own. My family finally learned the lesson I'd been trying to teach them for years. Money can buy comfort. It can buy houses, businesses, cars, status. But it cannot buy love. And the moment you start measuring someone's worth by what they can give you, you've already lost something money can never replace. Respect. Olivia stood to leave. At the door, she turned. Rachel. Yes. Happy birthday. I laughed softly. My birthday was almost a year ago. I know. She smiled. I just wanted to say it properly this time. After she left, I stood by the window and watched her walk down the street. The sister who once called me pathetic was finally learning to stand on her own. And I realized something. That birthday dinner wasn't the day my family destroyed me. It was the day I stopped allowing them to define me. They thought I was the pathetic sister who still rented. They were right about one thing. I still rent. But now, I choose where I belong. And I will never again pay for a place at a table where I'm not respected. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't making people suffer. It's simply walking away and becoming someone they can no longer afford to underestimate.